Hello everybody, Michael Irwin here, first time doing one of these, and today we're going to be talking about Compose with Kubernetes and Flux, so let's party. But in all seriousness, I hope you're doing well, and I hope we have a good time here. This should be fairly quick, I would say, but there's quite a few different pieces to talk about, and I hope this all makes sense. So first off, let's talk about what it is that I'm even trying to do here. So we know Compose has been around for quite a while now, and for a long time, people have been using it for local development, and I've talked a lot about this, even at DockerCon and whatnot, of using Compose and whatnot. And over the last year or two, something like that, we've seen Compose get extended out to be used for ACI and ECS. But Docker's also working on a Kubernetes backend, and it's not bundled in the actual tool right now. You have to build it yourself. It's kind of an experimental backend. But what makes Kubernetes hard is that there's so many different ways to deploy to Kubernetes, and there's so many other things that you might want to configure, like ingress and persistent volume claims and a bunch of other things. So it's like, how do all these other things kind of fit in? And the reason why I'm interested in this is because here at Virginia Tech, we're trying to build a platform for many of our teams to be able to deploy their applications. And we're looking to leverage Flux to do that. And in case you're not familiar with Flux, basically what it is it allows within our cluster, we have there's Flux running. Let me draw a box around our entire cluster here. And what it does is it watches a Git repo, and it applies any of the manifests that it sees in that repo. And so that makes that repo kind of a source of truth for a particular tenant or an application team, etc. And I'm not going to get into all the benefits of GitOps, but that's one of the big things. Another, I would say, is that our pipelines no longer have to be credentialed to know how to actually push changes into the cluster. So Flux itself keeps all those credentials within the cluster itself. So the question is, how does Compose fit into this? All right. And so I'm gonna conceptually draw what we're gonna do here, and then I'll do a demo. So in my Git repo, I'm going to have a Docker Compose file. .yml, running out of room there, but that's okay. And in the cluster, we're going to have Flux just like we had before. But obviously, Flux can't watch a Compose file. It doesn't know how to deploy that or do anything with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a pipeline to convert that Compose file and push it all the manifests that it creates back into the repo. And then Flux will then watch that directory with the manifests in it. Okay. And what I'm going to use to do this conversion is a Helm chart that I've actually built. And I wouldn't say that this Helm chart is, it's semi-general purpose, but again, every cluster is different, every platform team is different, and there may be different capabilities that you may have that others may not have. And so we've been able to build a Helm chart that does most of our use cases directly in it. And so what I want to be able to do is that when Flux deploys everything into the tenant namespace, or the application team namespace, whatever you want to call it, I want that dev team to still be able to use the Compose tooling, to access, see the logs, exec into their containers, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so conceptually, that's what I'm going to try to do here, and we'll see how successful I am with this. So let's jump over to GitHub, and we're going to start off with a repo here, and we're gonna build this out here. So I'm going to make a new repo called the Flux Compose demo. Let's create the repo, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a file that has all of our Flux stuff in. Now, normally I would be applying all these changes external, but this also makes it so that any of you could follow along with me later as well. So I'm going to just grab this, copy and paste this in here. And so what this is going to do is it's going to define a Git repository that Flux is going to watch, and then it's going to apply all the manifests that are found in the /manifest directory and apply them into the cluster. Okay, so we will commit that file, and then let's go ahead and create a Docker Compose file at the root of our repo here. Yep. .yml, there we go. And we'll paste in a compose file. Now this is actually the example voting app that Docker uses for a lot of their demos and whatnot as well. And you'll see that I've added a couple other things like xingress to these ports to say any request that goes to vote.localhost, I want it to be sent to this port on this service. So I've got a couple of these extension fields that extend the capability of Compose, because, well, Compose doesn't have a standardized way in the specification to define ingress and HTTP routing. So my Helm chart has a couple of these extension fields supported so that I could create ingress objects, etc. All right, let's go ahead and commit this file. And then the last thing I want to do is actually create a workflow here. And so I'll just set one up myself, and we'll call this manifest generation. And I'm going to paste in my workflow as well. So we're going to run on the main branch anytime the compose file changes. So that way when I commit and push the manifest again, it doesn't kick this off and or I'm stuck in a loop forever. Workflow dispatch just lets me run the workflow from here in the GitHub web interface. In my workflow, what it's going to do is I'm going to just check out the source. I'm going to set up Helm, which installs Helm. I'm going to add the Helm chart and fetch it. I'm going to run a template, a Helm template to generate the manifest. I drop that into manifest/app.yaml, and then I commit and push it back. So let's go ahead and commit this. And one last thing I need to do is at the root of my repo, I need to create that manifest folder. So I'm going to go manifest, and I'm just going to make a git keep file here. Oops, that's not making a file. That's searching for a file. So add file, manifest, if I can spell manifest right, git keep. And so this is just creating a marker file because Git doesn't keep track of empty directory. So by putting a git keep in there, it just keeps the directory there. All right, so now what I can do is I can trigger this workflow. And so I'll run it and refresh the page, and we'll see that it is running now. And what we should see in just a second is this workflow will kick off. It'll set up the job. It'll install Helm. It'll do the creating the manifest, push those, and hey, the job's complete. So let's take a look at those manifests real quick. If we look at our manifest directory, we'll see that there's a app.yaml in here, and there's all the service accounts and deployment and a bunch of other stuff. The deployments for each of the different pieces and ingress. There's quite a bit here. So defines our application. So now let's go ahead and clone this locally and try it out, shall we? So let me grab my clone URL here, and let's switch over to my terminal and git clone. And now let's go ahead and apply the manifest that we had in the Flux directory to create that Git repository and the customization. And I've got an alias for the kube control, kube cuddle, however you want to say it, just as K. And if I get my Git repository now, we should see that it's fetched the repo. Once it comes up, there we go. So it's fetched revision F8E. That's cool. And let's check our customization, which is what's actually going to apply it. So the first time it failed because that Git repository hadn't been loaded and everything. Actually, that's from a previous demo. Whoops. But this latest one, it has applied it, and I should see now a bunch of pods here. Okay. And so it's still spinning some of them up. And again, this was all sourced from that compose file. So I see 2 replicas of vote, 2 replicas of worker, and just for kicks, let's make sure that they're running first. Okay, yep, they're running. So if we jump back over to Chrome, I should be able to open up vote.localhost, and I see the cats versus dogs. And in another browser, let's open up results.localhost. Oop. There we go. Whoops, got the wrong button there. And so now if I vote for dogs, we'll see that the vote should come through. Maybe. Let's refresh this. All right, well, that's actually a pretty good thing that we can look at. So now let's jump back to our terminal. And what I can do is I can create a Docker Compose context. Oops, Docker context. I'm going to create a Kubernetes context. Kubernetes. And I'm going to just call it local K8s. And I want it to use my kube config for configuration, and I'm going to use my Docker desktop context. And now Docker context use local K8s. Oh, and I just saw that if I jump back over here real quick, that it got that fixed there. So, all right. So now if I change to cats, there it goes, or dogs. I guess things were just running a little slow there, but anyways, back to my terminal. So now I'm using the local K8s context, and so what I can do is a Docker Compose ls, and I'll see the voting app that just got deployed there, and I can do a Docker Compose logs, specify the voting app project, and I have to put the project first. Voting app logs, and let's follow the logs, and you'll see that it's streaming the logs from all of the pods that are running in my Kubernetes cluster. Now I'm not going to switch over to Chrome. I'll just click on it, but as I click cats and dogs and vice versa, we see the logs streaming to the terminal here, and yeah, there's some errors because it's not doing detection. That's app level stuff, but anyways, we see the logs from all the different pods showing up here, and I can do Docker Compose voting app PS to see what containers are running. I can even do a Docker Compose voting app exec vote, and let's start a shell. And so it's going to pick one of those pods at random and then let me run something inside of it. And so I'm exec inside of the container right now. And again, this is all just using Compose. And let's, as one more little demo here, let's go back to GitHub, and let's make a change to this Compose file. And let's go... All right, I'm going to define environment, and I'm going to say option A is ice cream, and option B is cheesecake. So we'll, instead of voting for cats and dogs now, let's vote for desserts. I'm going to commit this change. We'll see that the workflow is kicked off here. And within just a couple seconds, this will go. Now, if I were doing this correctly on a non-local dev cluster anyways, I would set up webhooks so that as I make changes to my manifest, it does a webhook notification to the cluster. So the Git repo fetches immediately and the manifests get applied right away. But it's kind of hard to set that up on my local environment now. So instead, I just have to kind of wait for it. And let's see, my latest commit from GitHub was 188, which it's already fetched and already applied. And I should see that my votes now are rotating out, which I see that right now, while all the other ones are sticking around. And now if I go back to Chrome, if I refresh this, Let's just load it new. Now I'm voting ice cream versus cheesecake. So pretty cool. And again, this allows my app team to focus using Compose. They can use all the Compose tooling, but yet I can use other methods to actually do the deploy. In this case, I'm using Flux and a custom Helm chart to actually do that deploy. Anyways, so hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. And until next time, have a good one. Thank you.